People always think the scariest part of moving into a new home is the first night. New sounds, new shadows, unfamiliar corners your eyes aren't used to, the strange way the walls seem to breathe as the house settles. But for Emma Dalton, the scariest moment wasn't the first night at all. It wasn't the silence that hung in the air like a warning, or the echoing footsteps she thought she heard upstairs. No, the moment that would haunt her for the rest of her life came long before sunset. It happened within the first hour. It was the first knock. A knock that didn't come from outside, but from somewhere deep within the house. Emma and her 14-year-old daughter Lacey had barely rolled their suitcases across the wooden floor of the old Victorian rental on Pine Hollow Road when it began. They had seen the listing online, charming, spacious, freshly vacated, but the truth was far darker. The last family hadn't moved out because of a job relocation or a housing upgrade. No, they had vanished. They left everything behind as if they were fleeing something. Couches, toys, dishes still sitting in the sink, and even 2 toothbrushes resting on the bathroom counter, frozen in place like the people who owned them had evaporated. The landlord shrugged it off with a half-smile when Emma asked about it. "Family issues," he said, waving his hand dismissively, as if that explained why half the bedroom doors had scratches on the inside, long, frantic lines carved into the wood from someone trying to get out. Or why the basement door had 3 separate locks installed backward, on the tenant's side, not the basement's. Emma should have walked away. Maybe a smarter, calmer version of her would have. But she needed the place, needed the restart after the messy divorce, needed to prove to Lacey she could still create a home. Even if that home felt colder than the winter air outside, even if the walls seemed to suck warmth from their breath the moment they entered. She told herself every old house had quirks. Every old house had shadows. Every old house had secrets. But this one wasn't patient. It didn't wait for them to unpack or settle. It introduced itself immediately. At exactly 2:14 p.m. as Emma unpacked 2 boxes in the kitchen, she heard a sound. A single sharp knock. Not from the front door. Not from the back door. Not from any window. No, it came from the hallway closet. The same closet Emma had locked moments earlier after noticing the doorknob was loose and turning too easily, almost as if someone had been messing with it from the inside. Lacey heard it too. She froze mid-step, holding a ceramic bowl, her face drained of color as her eyes snapped toward her mother. "Mom? Someone's in there." Emma forced a shaky smile. Probably the wood settling. But the wood didn't usually knock. And it definitely didn't usually turn the doorknob back. Before Emma could take even one step, the closet doorknob began to twist. Slowly at first. Creaking, grinding, fighting against whatever was trying to move it. Like fingers, thin, determined fingers, were wrapping around it from the inside. Emma grabbed Lacey's wrist and pulled her backward. The knob rattled harder. Harder. Harder, until something slammed into the door from the inside with such force that the frame shook. Bang. Lacey screamed. Emma didn't think, she just ran. They burst outside the house, boots crunching against the icy ground, breath fogging the air in ragged bursts. They stood there in silence, staring at the front door as if expecting someone, or something, to come out. When nothing did, Emma finally forced herself to return. She stepped into the hallway slowly, pulse pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. The closet door was no longer shut tight. It was open. Just an inch. Just enough to show the darkness inside. Just enough to prove that something had turned the knob, pushed it open, and then gone still. Gone quiet. Watching. Waiting. This was their first hour in the house. No furniture arranged, no beds made, no memories created. And yet the house acted like it had been expecting them. Like it had already made its choice. Emma swallowed hard, the kind of swallow that hurts. Because deep down, somewhere below denial, below logic, below the part of her that tried to stay brave for her daughter, she knew the truth. The house hadn't just accepted them. It had chosen them. And whatever had knocked wanted out. Emma Dalton stepped back into the hallway, her heart pounding so violently she could feel it in her throat, every beat echoing in her ears like a warning drum. The air inside the house felt different now, thicker, heavier, tainted with a coldness that didn't belong to January anymore. It felt like the breath of something ancient coiled deep within the walls. The closet door that had slammed shut moments earlier now stood partially open, tilted just enough to resemble a crooked, mocking smile. Emma whispered, "Stay behind me," her voice barely more than a ghost of sound, and Lacey nodded, gripping the strap of her backpack so tightly her knuckles turned white. Emma forced her hand forward and pushed the closet door the rest of the way open. The darkness inside was ordinary at first glance. Just a shallow space with a peeling wooden shelf and wallpaper so old it curled like dried skin. But the smell was wrong, a damp soil scent that belonged outside in the ground, not inside a hallway closet. And then she saw the floor. Thin scratch marks covered the inside of the door frame and the closet floor, hundreds of them, all clustered at the bottom as if something had spent years clawing to get out. These weren't the random scuffs of furniture or pets. They curved, intersected, repeated in patterns that were almost symbols, almost writing. Not English. Not numbers. Something older. Something trying to speak. Lacey whispered, trembling, "Mom, someone lived in here." Emma shook her head quickly, her denial collapsing under the weight of dread in her stomach. Or something was trapped in here. As if responding to her words, the temperature dropped sharply, a sudden icy wave rolling through the hallway. Before either of them could move, the front door slammed shut on its own, the bang echoing like a gunshot through the empty rooms. Lacey jumped, nearly dropping her backpack. "Mom, let's go. Please. Please." Emma nodded, fighting to control her voice. "We're not staying here tonight. I'll call the landlord. We'll figure this out." She pushed the closet door closed gently, almost respectfully, but before the latch could click, tap. A single, deliberate knock from the inside. Lacey gasped, tears filling her eyes. "Mom, outside. Now." They grabbed their coats with shaking hands and hurried onto the porch, breathing hard in the frigid air. Emma dialed the landlord, pacing back and forth, the phone trembling in her grip. No answer. She called again. And again. Straight to voicemail every time. "What kind of landlord disappears on day one?" she muttered, her frustration barely masking her fear. Lacey hugged herself. "Mom, I don't think the last family left because of family issues." Emma didn't respond, because she was beginning to think the same. As they walked to the car, Emma glanced across the street and froze. An elderly woman stood in her window, staring at them with wide, fearful eyes, like someone watching a tragedy unfold in slow motion. When Emma lifted her hand in a polite, hopeful wave, the woman jerked backward and yanked her curtains shut as if afraid to be seen. Lacey whispered, "Mom, why won't anyone look at this house?" Emma didn't have an answer she was willing to say aloud. After a quick dinner at a small diner, they returned at sunset. The burnt orange light cast long, unnatural shadows across the porch, stretching like grasping fingers. Emma unlocked the door, praying everything inside would look normal. But the moment she stepped in, she knew the house hadn't been resting. Every door in the hallway, bedrooms, bathrooms, storage, stood wide open. They had left them closed. All of them. Even the basement door, which had been locked from the outside. Emma locked the front door behind them. "Stay close," she whispered. The air smelled different now, older, metallic, tinged with something faintly like rust, or blood. Lacey tugged her sleeve. "Mom, look." At the end of the hallway near the open basement door, lay a small wooden toy. A carved figure of a little boy. Except the boy's face had been violently scratched off, gouges where the eyes should be. Emma's stomach twisted. "We're leaving. We're not spending a night here." She reached for the basement door to close it, and froze. Deep scratches covered the inside of the basement door. But these scratches formed words. Desperate, frantic words carved into the wood. "He knocks when he hungry. Don't answer. Don't open. Don't let him out." Lacey backed away, her voice cracking. "Mom, what if he's already out?" Before Emma could respond, knock. Not from the basement. From behind them. The closet. Again. A slow, patient, echoing knock. Emma grabbed Lacey's hand, pulling her tight against her side. The hallway seemed to breathe, the shadows shifting like something tall was standing just outside their vision. And as they backed away from the closet door, hearts racing, the house greeted them once more, with another deliberate knock. Their first day in the house wasn't over. But the house had already decided it wanted them. And it had no intention of letting them leave. Emma didn't run this time. She stood frozen in the dim hallway as if the house itself had wrapped cold fingers around her ankles and held her in place, the air thick with a suffocating stillness that felt far too intentional to be natural. She stared at the closet door like it was alive, like it was breathing, like it was waiting for her to move first. The knock that echoed from inside wasn't loud like earlier. This one was softer, slower, almost polite, like a creature tapping gently on glass to observe how the thing on the other side reacts. It felt deliberate, curious, intelligent. Lacey's fingers dug into Emma's arm as she whispered, trembling, "Mom, please don't go near it." Emma swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice even though a storm of fear churned in her chest. "I'm not," she whispered. "We're leaving. Now." But the house had already made its next move. As Emma turned toward the front door, the handle began to twist on its own, the metal clicking down as though an invisible hand pressed it, testing it, mimicking the exact way she had opened it earlier. Then it stopped, paused, and slowly lifted again as if the unseen thing was practicing how to use it. A chill ran through Emma's spine. "It's copying us," she breathed. The closet crack seemed wider now, just barely but enough to prove it had shifted on its own, like the door was inching open each time they blinked. Emma grabbed her keys with shaking fingers. "We're going to the car. No looking back. No stopping." But before they could take 2 steps, the lights above them buzzed and flickered violently, casting the hallway into brief bursts of darkness. The wooden floor let out a long groan, as if something heavy crawled beneath it. A cold draft brushed Emma's neck, cold enough to sting, like icy fingertips dragging across her skin. The house wasn't just reacting. It was protesting. Warning. Trying to keep them inside. Emma forced her feet to move, guiding Lacey toward the front door. Halfway across the hallway, knock. This time louder. Harder. Angrier. She didn't look back. She couldn't. She reached the front door and twisted the lock, only to find it stuck. The key refused to turn as if the mechanism had seized. She gritted her teeth, forcing it again and again, but it refused to move. Behind them, the house fell silent. Silent enough to hear their own heartbeat. Silent enough to feel something watching. The closet door creaked again, a slow whispering sound of wood dragging against wood. Emma threw her shoulder against the door, desperately trying the lock again. "Come on, come on, come on." And finally, with a loud click, it released. The front door slammed open as cold winter air rushed in. They bolted outside, sprinting to the car, nearly slipping on the frozen ground. Emma shoved Lacey inside and scrambled into the driver's seat, hands trembling so violently she dropped the key twice before forcing it into the ignition. Before she could start the engine, Lacey's voice cracked with terror. "Mom, look." Emma lifted her eyes. Across the street, behind the window, the old woman stood again. But this time she wasn't afraid. She wasn't curious. She was shaking her head slowly, urgently, warning them, "Don't go back. Don't return. Don't let it see you leave." Emma didn't wait. She slammed the pedal, speeding away from the house, her breath shuddering in her chest as they drove into the town center. They parked under bright fluorescent lights outside a grocery store, the only place that felt somewhat human in the icy stillness of the night. Lacey hugged her knees in the passenger seat. "Mom, we can't sleep there. Ever." "We won't," Emma said automatically. But her voice lacked conviction. She pulled out her phone to book a hotel, then froze. A new voicemail notification blinked on her screen. One new message. From an unknown number. Timestamp just 5 minutes ago. Exactly when they had been running. Emma hesitated, then pressed play. A man's voice came through the speaker, ragged, hoarse, terrified. "You opened the door, didn't you?" Emma's stomach dropped. "We told him, we locked him away, don't let him follow you." A scuffle sounded like the phone was grabbed, then a hollow, echoing knock. Knock. Emma's fingers went cold. Lacey whispered, "Mom, how did he know your number?" Emma's throat tightened as she looked at the timestamp again. "He didn't. This message isn't from today." Lacey's eyes filled with fear. "Then when?" Emma swallowed. 3 months ago. When the last family lived there. The message had repeated. Like the house had forwarded it itself. They drove to the nearest motel, a small, faded building with flickering neon lights. Inside the room, Lacey collapsed onto the bed, exhausted. "I'm not going back there, Mom. I'm not." "We won't," Emma lied softly. But lying didn't matter anymore. Because at midnight, as the heater hummed weakly and the room grew unbearably quiet, Emma heard a familiar sound. A single, soft, deliberate knock. And it didn't come from the door. It came from the motel closet. The door vibrated, trembling gently. Emma grabbed Lacey, whispering the words she feared most. "It followed us." And the closet door nudged forward, like something inside had traveled with them, and was knocking to be let out. For a long moment, neither Emma nor Lacey breathed. The motel room felt like it had shrunk, the air thick and suffocating as if the walls themselves were waiting to see what they would do next. The trembling closet door nudged forward again. Just a small movement, a tiny push, but it was enough to make Emma feel like she was standing on the edge of a dark pit that wanted to swallow her whole. Tap, tap, tap. 3 slow, polite knocks, each one softer than the last but somehow louder inside her chest. It wasn't knocking to scare them. It was knocking because it had found them. It was knocking because it wanted out. Lacey's fingers tightened painfully around Emma's wrist. "Mom, how did it get here?" We left the house. Emma couldn't answer at first, her throat felt locked shut. Finally she whispered, "We didn't leave what was behind the door." As if her words were an invitation, a fourth knock came, harder, impatient. Then a whisper slid through the crack beneath the door like a breath of ice. "Maya?" Emma flinched. It sounded like it was calling her name in a warped, broken voice. But Lacey's trembling whisper shattered that hope. "No, Mom, it's saying Mum." Then the voice changed. The next whisper came in Lacey's exact tone, Lacey's exact pitch. "Mom, help me." Lacey's nails dug into Emma's arm. "Mom, that's not me. That's not me." Emma grabbed her phone, her hands shaking so badly she could barely dial 911. But the moment she pressed the call button, the closet went perfectly, unnervingly silent. The lights flickered once. Her phone screen lit up with a new notification. Unknown device connected. Pairing successful. Lacey whimpered, "Mom, it's using your phone." A new audio file appeared on its own. Recorded seconds ago. Emma felt like her breath stopped as she tapped it. The recording played her own whispering voice, shaking, terrified, but no memory of speaking it existed in her mind. "Don't look behind you." Emma turned instantly, nothing was behind them. But the closet door was now open an inch wider. She grabbed Lacey's hand and yanked her toward the motel door, their bare feet slapping against the cold floor. They bolted into the freezing parking lot. The night clerk, a tired man in his 40s wearing a faded jacket, looked up from his cigarette and stumbled toward them. "Whoa, hey, what's going on?" Emma could barely form words. "Something is in our room." "A person?" he asked, alarmed. "No," Emma cried. "Not a person." He frowned and stepped past her. "Let me check." "Don't," Emma begged, but he was already walking toward their door. He swung it open confidently, only for his face to twist into horror a second later. He pointed a trembling finger toward their car. "There's someone in your back seat," he whispered, stepping backward. Emma shook her head violently. "There's no someone." Don't, too late." Ray reached the car and grabbed the back door handle. It lifted on its own. Ray froze. His last words were a broken whisper, "There's nothing there." Then something yanked him inside so violently his feet left the ground. His scream lasted less than a second before being drowned out by horrid thuds against the car walls. The entire vehicle shook as if something inside was thrashing him like a rag doll. Emma covered Lacey's eyes, but the sound alone carved itself into their memories. Then silence. The back door slowly opened again. Ray was gone. No body. No blood. Just darkness. And breathing. Slow. Satisfied. Then footprints appeared, muddy, black, wet, one by one, leading across the asphalt toward the motel entrance. Lacey screamed. Emma dragged her inside the gas station convenience store attached to the motel. The automatic doors slammed shut behind them. Emma grabbed Ray's key ring from behind the counter and pulled Lacey toward the storage room. They hid behind shelves stacked with cleaning supplies and canned beans, pushing a tall metal rack against the door. Lacey sobbed silently into Emma's coat. "Mom, it's going to get in. It came from the floor at the house. It doesn't need doors." Emma held her close. Her heart was thundering so loudly she feared the creature could track it. Then knock. Not on the door. Not on the walls. But on the floor beneath them. 3 fast, impatient knocks. The tiles vibrated. Dust fell from the ceiling. Lacey covered her mouth to stop a scream. The floor bulged upward like something underneath was pushing through. A crack split open like an egg. And the whisper rose from below, Lacey's voice again, "Let me o it." Emma pulled her daughter back just as the floor began to buckle, the tiles bending like soft clay. The thing was coming through. Nothing was stopping it now. Nothing but them. And the knocking grew faster. Closer. Hungrier. The floor swelled upward like a living creature taking its first violent breath, each inhale pushing the cracked tiles higher, each exhale making the entire storage room tremble as if the building itself were afraid of what was rising beneath it. Emma held Lacey tightly, dragging her backward through the cramped room, her mind racing faster than her heartbeat as dust rained from the flickering bulb above them. Then a hand emerged, not a human hand but something impossibly long and thin, its fingers bent in unnatural places like broken branches, its nails blackened and sharp, scraping lightly across the tiles as though feeling, testing, knocking. Knock, knock, knock. 3 delicate taps that felt horribly deliberate, like the creature was savoring the moment it crossed into their space. Lacey stifled a cry behind trembling fingers as another hand pulled itself up, followed by an arm so distorted it seemed to stretch like cold tar. The head came next, Not round, not human, but a shadow shaped into the vague impression of a face, except where eyes should have been were two deep dents that pulsed and shifted as if sniffing, sensing their presence. The dents slowly turned toward the corner where Emma and Lacey crouched, and Emma could feel its attention like a cold spotlight settling directly on them. It inhaled, not with lungs but with a cavernous sound like wind inside a hollow cave. Lacey shook violently. "Mom, it's smelling for us," she whispered. The creature tilted its head, listening to the rapid thudding of Emma's heart. Then, horrifyingly, it began to mimic that rhythm. Thump, 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 matching Emma's heartbeat with slow, echoing knocks. Emma knew they had seconds before it lunged. She grabbed the metal paint scraper lying at her feet, not a weapon but better than nothing, and braced herself. Suddenly, with a crack of joints like splintering wood, the creature hurled itself across the storage room in a blur of limbs, smashing through a shelf and sending canned goods exploding across the floor like metal shrapnel. Emma screamed and shoved Lacey aside as the creature slammed into the spot where they had been hiding milliseconds earlier. It rose up again, unfolding its long legs like a monstrous spider stretching awake after a long sleep. Then it rushed toward them, its limbs scraping, bending, contracting, moving in jerking bursts that made no logical sense. Emma grabbed Lacey's wrist and sprinted toward the internal store entrance, but the creature screeched, a high-pitched metallic sound that made the room vibrate, and cut them off by stretching its limbs into long snake-like tendrils that slapped across the floor. It played with space, warping its shape to block their escape. Lacey cried out as the creature whispered again, this time in her exact voice, perfect down to the trembling, "Mum, don't run." The mimicry sent ice down Emma's spine. The creature didn't understand language, it understood reaction. And fear. A soda bottle rolled off a shelf in the main store, making a tiny clatter. The creature's head snapped toward the sound instantly, its entire body twisting toward the noise like a predator scenting blood. Emma used the moment. "Lacey, now." They crawled out from behind the remaining shelves and sprinted to the counter. Ray's key ring still hung on the hook. Emma snatched it with shaking fingers as the creature's limbs pounded against the storage room wall. "Run!" she screamed as she dragged Lacey toward the back door. The creature exploded out of the storage room, a blur of limbs and shadow tearing through hanging snacks and bursting open refrigerators, its screeching so loud it rattled glass bottles on the shelves. Emma dropped the keys in panic, snatched them off the floor and shoved them into the lock with trembling hands. The creature raced toward them, 10 feet 8'5", and Emma jammed the key in just as its outstretched arms swooped toward Lacey. "Open, open, open!" Emma screamed. The lock clicked. She threw the door open and hurled Lacey outside into the freezing night. She stumbled after her, but the creature slammed into the doorframe behind them with a guttural roar, its limbs clawing at the empty air as if trying to cross an invisible line. But it couldn't. It screeched, its shadow boiling against the boundary like smoke trapped behind glass. Emma realized instantly, it was stronger inside buildings but weaker outside. It still belonged somewhere. Still tethered. Still bound to a single place. A single door. The original one. It could chase them through shadows, through rooms, through cracks, but only within certain walls. The creature screeched, thrashing violently but unable to break through the invisible barrier at the back exit. Emma pulled Lacey away into the night, her breath shaking as she stared at the monstrous, furious shape clawing at the doorway it could not leave. Lacey sobbed into her chest. "Mom, why won't it follow us outside?" Emma knew the answer, and the truth chilled her more than the winter air. "Because," she whispered, trembling, "it's still tied to the house. And it wants to go home." Emma could hardly breathe as she dragged Lacey away from the gas station's back exit, her lungs burning from cold air and fear, her mind racing to piece together what she had just witnessed. The creature had thrown itself at the doorway with the force of a derailed train yet couldn't cross the invisible boundary. Its limbs had twisted, elongated, and slammed repeatedly against the metal frame, but every strike stopped dead at the threshold as if some ancient rule tethered it, binding it to a place it could not abandon. Its shrieks echoed into the night, furious, hungry, betrayed. Lacey clung to her mother, trembling violently. "Mom, why didn't it follow? Why?" Emma stared at the creature clawing at the doorway, realization settling like ice in her stomach. "Because it's tied to something, a boundary, a rule." The wind blew a swirl of dust across the empty parking lot as she whispered the terrible truth forming in her thoughts. "It's tied to the house." Lacey's tear-filled eyes widened. "Mom, then why is it here?" Emma swallowed. "Because when we ran, when we opened that closet door, we didn't free it. We unanchored it." The word felt heavy and sharp. The creature let out a final enraged screech before slipping back into the shadows of the store, retreating like a wave pulling back into the ocean, waiting, watching. And then Emma understood. It goes back home when we're far. It's stronger there. It belongs there. Lacey shook her head vigorously, backing away. Mom, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking. Emma grabbed her shoulders. Lacey, it doesn't want to kill us immediately. It wants us to come back. Lacey's breath froze in her throat. Why? Why us? Because we opened its door, Emma whispered. We became its new family. The words felt dirty, wrong, cursed as they left her mouth. The creature didn't want freedom. It wanted a vessel, a home, a bond. And if they kept running, it would simply keep following, through buildings, closets, floors, shadows, until its hunger fixed itself onto them completely. Emma stared down at the keys in her fist, the cold metal digging into her skin like a reminder. There's only one door it listens to, she whispered. Only one place it fully belongs. Lacey shook her head violently. No, Mom. No. If we go back, it gets stronger. Emma cupped her face, tears stinging her own eyes. If we don't go back, it will chase us forever. We have to put it back. Lacey looked like a child again, small, terrified, trying to understand a nightmare. But she nodded because she trusted her mother even when the world had twisted into something unrecognizable. The drive back to Pine Hollow Road was the longest, most agonizing trip of Emma's life. The roads were empty, swallowed by darkness. Every passing shadow felt like a hand reaching for the car. Every flicker of the dashboard lights made Lacey jolt. Emma's knuckles were white on the steering wheel, her heartbeat pounding like a warning drum in the silent night. When the house finally emerged at the end of the road, its silhouette loomed like a corpse waiting for breath. The porch light flickered on by itself. The front door creaked open slowly, as if smiling, welcoming them back, expecting them. Emma stepped out first, her breath clouding the icy air, her legs shaking but determined. Lacey followed, gripping her arm. Mom, it knows we're here. I know, Emma whispered, because she could feel the house vibrating faintly, like something beneath the floorboards was stirring awake. They entered the hallway, and immediately the wood beneath their feet groaned in a long, shuddering sigh. The closet door they had first opened now stood wide open, yawning like a throat. But farther down the hallway, the basement door was open too. That door, the real door. The door meant to contain whatever they had unleashed. The scratches, the warnings, the desperate carvings from the previous family flashed in Emma's mind. The house felt alive now, its walls breathing, its air pulsing with something ancient and hungry. Mom, what's the plan? Lacey whispered. Emma took her hand. We lock it back in the basement. But how do we get it inside? Before Emma could answer, knock. They turned. The creature slid into the house behind them like smoke poured from a shattered jar, its limbs unfolding, its shape expanding. Inside the house, it grew taller, stronger, more real, its body stretching across the ceiling, its shadow swallowing the walls. Lacey screamed. Emma shoved her toward the basement door. Run. They sprinted, the creature lunging after them, its limbs scraping the walls, knocking pictures off hooks, shattering bulbs in a frenzy. They stumbled down the stairs, the basement cold and damp like a grave. The locks. Emma yelled. Lacey grabbed the first latch. Click. The creature slammed into the door. Boom. The wood bowed inward like elastic. Second lock. Click. Boom. The door cracked. A shadow seeped through the fracture, reaching. Emma braced her shoulder against the door with everything she had. Lacey, the last one. The girl's trembling fingers forced the third lock shut. Click. The creature shrieked, a furious, guttural sound that shook the entire basement before fading into vibrating silence. Emma and Lacey collapsed, sobbing, gripping each other, believing, hoping they had won. But Emma's phone buzzed. She looked down, blood draining from her face as the notification appeared. Connected device. Pine Hollow closet, active. Status reconnecting. Reconnecting. Reconnected. Lacey gasped as the basement door behind them knocked softly. Knock, knock, knock. Then a whisper came through the cracks, in Lacey's exact voice. Ma, I'm still hungry. Emma grabbed her daughter's hand, whispering, run. And the house knocked back, eager to start again. Emma barely had time to blink before the soft knocking on the basement door became a slow, rhythmic pulse that vibrated through the concrete floor beneath her feet, each tap sending a tremor up her spine as if the house itself were breathing in anticipation. Lacey clung to her mother's arm, sobbing silently, her small fingers digging into Emma's coat like she was afraid she might get pulled away by invisible hands. Emma forced herself to stand, even though her legs felt like they were shaking loose from her bones, and she pulled Lacey with her toward the basement stairs, the air growing colder and denser with every step they climbed. The house groaned above them, floorboards creaking, walls expanding and contracting like ribs inhaling deeply. When they reached the top of the staircase, the entire hallway was trembling, the lights flickering in a strange, deliberate pattern. Not random, not faulty, but almost coded, like messages tapping out through electricity. The moment they stepped into the hall, all the doors, every bedroom, the bathroom, the linen closet, slammed shut at the same time, the echoing bangs vibrating up the walls and making Lacey scream. Then, slowly, one by one, they reopened by themselves, each door creaking wide as if something invisible were gliding through the house, checking for exits, hunting for them. Emma dragged Lacey toward the front door, but before she could touch the handle, the doorknob twisted sharply and the door slammed shut with a force that rattled the windows. Lacey cried out, "Mom, it won't let us leave." Emma grabbed the handle with both hands, pulling desperately, but it stayed locked as though welded shut by unseen fingers. Behind them, the basement door thudded again, one loud, hungry boom that made dust fall from the ceiling. Then another. And then a third, softer this time, almost gentle, mocking. A whisper leaked out through the crack at the bottom, sliding across the floor like smoke. "Mum, open!" Emma shook Lacey violently. "Don't listen. Don't answer. Don't look back." She dragged her toward the kitchen, hoping for a back exit, but the moment they entered, every cabinet door burst open at once, slamming repeatedly like someone banging from inside the drawers. Plates shook on the shelves. A drinking glass slid off the counter and shattered at their feet, the pieces skittering away as though pushed by small, invisible hands. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, animated, enraged. Emma yanked Lacey toward the back door, but that door, too, slammed shut before they reached it, the lock twisting itself loudly. Lacey screamed and clutched her mother so tightly Emma could barely move. Then the walls began knocking, first softly, then louder, then in different directions, knocking above them, beside them, behind them, under them. It wasn't one knock anymore. It was dozens. Hundreds. Like hands beating from inside the walls. The house was calling the creature home. Emma grabbed a kitchen chair, her breath shaking violently, and ran back into the hallway, smashing it into the nearest window with all her strength. The window exploded outward, glass raining onto the porch. "Go!" Emma shoved Lacey through the broken frame, ignoring the glass cutting into her hands and arms, her only focus getting her daughter outside the house's grip. Lacey landed on the porch with a cry and turned just in time to see Emma vault through the shattered window, bleeding but determined. They sprinted across the yard toward the car, the cold air biting into their skin. But before Emma reached the car door, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. She yanked it out, already knowing what she would see. A device was connected. The same message she feared, Pine Hollow Closet, connected. But this time something worse flashed beneath it. Distance, 2 feet. Lacey froze. "Mom, it's here. It's right here." Emma turned slowly, dread crawling up her spine like icy fingers. And then they heard it, behind them inside the car's trunk, knock. A slow, deliberate knock that reverberated through the cold metal. Emma pulled Lacey back. But then another knock came, from under the car. Then from the rear passenger seat. Then from the front dashboard. It wasn't in one spot. It was moving, hunting, surrounding. A whisper filled the air, soft, sweet, hungry. "Ma, let me out." Emma shoved Lacey behind her, her hands shaking. "Stay back." But the car doors all unlocked at the same time with a synchronized click that echoed through the empty street. The headlights flickered. The trunk popped open an inch. The creature didn't need the basement anymore. It didn't need the closet. It had found its new door, Emma and Lacey themselves. They backed away slowly, breath fogging in terrified bursts, as the air around them thickened and twisted. The house behind them creaked loudly, inviting them back, calling them home. The basement door inside slammed once more, as if reminding them the story wasn't finished. And as they backed into the shadow of the trees, the creature whispered from everywhere at once, inside the car, inside the air, inside their heads, "I'm not done. Come back." Then the house knocked back, once, twice, 3 times, starting the cycle again. Emma had never run so fast in her life. The cold branches scraped her arms as she dragged Lacey down the dark street, the house behind them knocking louder and louder, as if angry they had slipped from its grasp. The wind felt wrong, too cold, too sharp, as if the night itself had been altered by the thing they'd set loose. Lacey clung to her mother's jacket, barely able to keep up, her breath sharp and panicked. "Mom, where are we going now? It's everywhere, inside the car, in the air, it follows us no matter what." Emma didn't know the answer. All she knew was they had to get somewhere bright, somewhere human, somewhere the house couldn't twist into a trap. But as they reached the intersection, Emma stopped dead. Police lights flashed in the distance, red and blue reflecting off the pavement. Several neighbors stood outside, whispering, pointing, frightened. Then Emma realized they weren't pointing at the house. They were pointing at her. A police officer approached cautiously, hand on his holster. "Ma'am, are you Emma Dalton?" Emma nodded stiffly, pulling Lacey close. "You need to come with us," the officer said. "Your landlord called. He said you broke into the property, vandalized it, destroyed windows, and forced entry into the basement." Emma stared at him, speechless. "We didn't. Something, was after us." "Ma'am," the officer interrupted gently, "your landlord also said the house has been vacant for nearly a year." Emma's blood ran cold. Vacant. Yes. No tenants. No utilities. No one's lived there since the incident with the previous family. Lacey shook her head violently. "No. That's not true. Their stuff is in there, the furniture, the toys, there was a carved boy in the hallway." The officer frowned. "We cleared the house earlier today. It's empty. Completely empty. No furniture. No boxes. No signs of anyone ever moving in." Emma took a step back, her throat tightening. "No, that can't be, we were just there," the officer's radio crackled. A voice cut through, "Dispatch to Unit 4. Basement door is locked from the outside. Same as last time. Looks undisturbed." Emma felt her knees weaken. "Undisturbed?" Lacey grabbed her mother's hand. "Mom, what's happening?" The officer stepped closer. "Ma'am, are you sure you and your daughter weren't the ones inside? People under stress sometimes." Emma jerked her hand away. "We didn't imagine it. We didn't hurt anything." "The house, something in the house?" The officer exchanged a look with his partner, the kind that said this woman is unstable. "Ma'am, please come sit in the car. We're going to take your statements." But then, a knock echoed. Not a loud, violent knock. No. A small one. Soft. Precise. The exact pattern Emma now recognized in her bones. Knock, knock, knock. The officer froze. What was that? Emma didn't answer. She already knew. Slowly, every officer turned toward the sound. The knock came again. But not from the house. Not from the car. Not from any door. It came from inside the police cruiser nearest them. The windows fogged up instantly from the inside. Everyone backed away. The deputy closest to the car approached with shaking hands. "Hello? Is someone inside?" Knock. But this time it wasn't alone. Another knock answered it from the second cruiser. Then a third knock from the trunk of a fourth car. Within seconds, every police cruiser began knocking. Different rhythms. Different speeds. But all knocking. Emma grabbed Lacey. "We have to go, now." But before they could run, the back door of the first cruiser opened slowly. Too slowly. Like someone inside was testing how doors worked. A shape, dark, stretching, too long, slid out and onto the street. The officers drew their weapons, shouting commands, but their voices shook. Another door opened. Another shape crawled out, this one smaller but equally wrong. A third shape emerged from the trunk. Emma realized with horror what had happened. The creature had never been alone. The house wasn't haunted by one entity. It was a nest. A prison. A containment chamber. And when she opened that closet door, she didn't just free it. She freed them. Multiple shapes gathered in the street now. Tall ones, small ones, crawling ones, all with those same dented eye-like hollows moving, sensing. One of them tilted its head, imitating Emma's terrified posture. Another stretched an arm that bent 3 times in ways no limb ever should. Lacey whispered, "Mom, they followed us out." "No," Emma breathed. "They followed us because of us." One of the creatures stepped closer, its form flickering like a glitching shadow. Then it whispered in Lacey's voice, perfectly, "Mu-um." Emma pushed Lacey behind her, shaking. "Stay back." But the creature stopped, and whispered something new. Something they had never heard. Something in Emma's voice. "We're free now." Emma felt her stomach drop. The police backed away, panicked, weapons shaking in their grasp. But it was too late. The creatures all turned, slowly in unison, toward the row of houses lining Pine Hollow Road. Toward new doors. New families. New closets. Emma realized the truth in one sickening moment. The closet wasn't meant to keep them in. It was meant to keep them from multiplying. The house wasn't cursed. The house was containment. And she had broken its seal. All around them the street began to knock. Knock, knock, knock. Doors. garages, mailboxes, car trunks, windows. The creatures moved in different directions, splitting up, expanding like shadows claiming new territory. Lacey sobbed. "Mom, what do we do?" Emma stared hollowly at the spreading shapes, her heart fractured. "We started this. Then how do we stop it?" Emma swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "We can't." And behind them, Pine Hollow House creaked, its basement door knocking one last time, almost relieved.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Leave us a comment for more stories like this. Your support means the world. Stay tuned for more videos.